Greetings to everyone. My name is Thomas Ward. I am Professor of Peace and Development here at the HJ International Graduate School for Peace and Public Leadership. I thank you for considering study here at HJI. And my purpose in this brief video is to provide an orientation to one of the courses that I teach here and that will be offered this fall, which is entitled Unification, Worldview, and Society. I think the best way to do this is to use a PowerPoint that I've prepared, and we'll just walk through this in about 5 minutes. I hope that you'll find it helpful and insightful and help you to make a decision about whether or not this is a course that will fit for you. So let me just extend my screen so that you have a full view of the screen here. Okay, we're ready to go. So for those of you who might have seen the shorter video that I've also prepared, I talked about the two tasks that true parents have before them and emphasized particularly in relationship to this particular course that the focus is on understanding how we protect the institutions that are in place to facilitate the ideal of realizing the kingdom of God. How do we succeed in fulfilling the three blessings if we don't have the foundation of a society with law, with rule of law, with predictability? All of these things are very, very essential. So unification worldview particularly looks at those things that represent potential obstacles to maintaining the fundamental rule of law, constitutional protections, freedom of religion, all of those factors that are so essential to really be able to go forward with sharing one's beliefs and also being able to act upon those beliefs. So among the many obstacles which we face, there is the problem, for example, of Marxism. Many of you who are familiar with the work of Father and Mother Moon know that they did spend a great deal of time pointing out the shortcomings and limitations of Marxism. And I was fortunate to be a part of a lot of those efforts, having served for many years in the organization. Causa International was one of its lecturers. Now we face post-Soviet Marxism, and this course particularly wants to look at socialism with Chinese characteristics. It's a new rendition of Marxism. Nevertheless, many of the pillars of Marxism still remain within the Chinese approach to communism. And we also want to learn about unification thought versus Marxism. One of the amazing things is the fact that there are many parallels between unification thought and Marxism. And in some sense, they seem almost the same, and yet they're the opposite. For example, we have a pair system of proton and electron. And yet within Marxism, those are called opposites, proton and electron. We have a fundamental system of give and take action. And within Marxism, there is contradiction, opposition, if you will. We also look at, and there are many, many other dimensions, the analysis of history that occurs within the two, the thoughts on what type of economy promotes the greatest level of economic justice. All of those things we look at in that particular dimension of the study of this course. Western secularism. Atheism is not just limited to communism. There is a whole school of secularism which emerged in the United States and in England and on continental Europe in the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries. And we look at those things in detail. Postmodern, the anti-cult movement. The anti-cult movement is really designed to prevent freedom of religion by categorizing certain religions as good religions, so-called healthy religions, versus other religions which are viewed only based upon a psychological perspective. And we look at what that perspective is in this course. Postmodernism. It's also an emerging worldview which has had currency since the late 1970s. It really began to take on a certain role. And it denies so many of the fundamental principles, even the notion of rationalism and the notion of empiricism are looked at very skeptically by postmodernism. Everything is viewed through the lens of power. And that kind of explains the type of culture that we face today in our world. Sometimes it's dismissively referred to as woke culture. But it's actually a very serious challenge, and it's had a great impact upon Western society. We also look at the current state and the future of democracy. all is not well in the Western democracies. And we want to take a careful examination of what does operate and what does not operate in that context. And finally, we do share some thoughts on the future of religion, politics, and economics through the lens of unificationism. And I think that you'll find that we take on some questions that really need to be taken on, and I think that you'll find this is very useful, and also you are invited to contribute in that projection, if you will. This is an online course, so lectures are pre-recorded for each week. Usually you have about a 1-hour lecture every week. And every week there are also online readings that you need to complete related to the topic. Every week there is a related assignment or the subject for a discussion where you're asked to share your thoughts on what you have been studying during that particular week. Now, let me just pause for a moment and say it's really important if you're going to take an online course that you're able to do it on a week-to-week basis. This is not something that you can procrastinate and wait and say, well, I'll wait till the 7th or 8th week and then I'll start to really study and catch up. It's impossible. The discussions are every week. Your classmates are going to be posting things every week. You need to be into that discussion. Otherwise, you miss so much of the enrichment and the potential, not just to study these things and get a grade, but actually to be able to converse about them and to be able to use them in your daily life after this course. Periodically, if there's interest, I will organize optional synchronous sessions on Zoom. I'm happy to do that for groups or for the entire class. And also, I'm happy to meet students individually if they have a question about a certain aspect of what we have been teaching or covering in the course. I'm happy to do that. There is a midterm in the course, and it particularly focuses on the first, I'd say, 7 or 8 weeks of the course, which look at these topics such as Marxism, communism with Chinese characteristics, and also this comparison between unification thought and Marxism. The course also has a final project or paper at the end, and I would also really advise all of you to kindly review the draft syllabus that is available here to get further insights into the cadence of the course and what you can expect in terms of the outcomes by taking this course. I believe that you will be much better equipped to converse even with people that don't necessarily share our faith but have interest in these topics. Everyone should have interest in these topics, and you'll be able to both show that you're aware of the topics, you understand the perspective of those who are looking at these things, and at the same time, I think it will become clear to them that you are a person who has insights that are valuable ones. And there will be opportunities in this course for you to share your insights and for others to be able to benefit from them, to formulate those ideas more deeply if you decide to do a final paper or a project that looks at a specific problem that's out there that needs to have further deliberation or reflection upon to get to where we have to go. So all kinds of issues that one could look at that we will give some hints about where those things have to go in the course. But as I showed you, the main foci are the things that I pointed to at the beginning. And those things are shown or clarified within the draft syllabus that's available to you. So essentially, that's pretty much it. That's the course. And I think that you will benefit from the course. That's been my finding from students who have taken it over many years. They usually find in this course something which is of meaning, and they also usually find in this course something that will allow them to better converse with others on a variety of topics that are out there that are not necessarily theological topics, but are topics which have a great impact upon where our world is going. Anyway, I just would say I think this is a fun course. My experience in the past, it can be a fun course. It's a great place for you to invest, and it's a great place for me to invest. Whether you take this course or not, I thank you for coming to HJI. And my own life was transformed because of HJI, and I have confidence that yours is being transformed as well. Thank you, and God bless you. And if you decide to take my course, I look forward to welcoming you at the end of August. God bless you.
Hello, I'm Thomas Walsh, and I'll be teaching the course on Ecumenism and Interfaith in the fall of 2026. It's an important course for anyone in the field of religion and anyone interested in the pursuit of peace and reducing conflict around the world. I'm going to share a few slides with you to give you a short introduction. This course will focus on the history and importance of ecumenical and interfaith dialogue as instruments of peace. Ecumenism refers to the effort to bring together in unity the many denominations and branches of Christianity across the world. Early ecumenical councils, going back to the Council of Nicaea in 325, at the time of Constantine the Great, assembled bishops from across the wider world of Christianity to come together to work out a basis for Christian unity. It was an important step, but the effort for complete unity has evaded Christianity throughout its history. Fast forward to 1910, there was the World Missionary Conference convened in Edinburgh, Scotland, that brought together particularly Protestant denominations to discuss their missionary efforts across the world and how they could collaborate. Vatican II was another milestone within the Roman Catholic Church that opened up dialogue between Catholicism and Protestantism and the Orthodox traditions, as well as with the world's religions. In 1948, the World Council of Churches was established, another milestone in the history of ecumenism that we'll be looking at. In the area of interfaith, a landmark moment was the Chicago Parliament of the World's Religions in 1893. It was the first global international gathering of faith leaders from all across the world for dialogue. It was a landmark and turning point in the history of interreligious relations. In addition, the United Nations has been active in seeking to promote greater interfaith harmony, knowing that it's related to the prospect of building a world of lasting peace. So they established the World Interfaith Harmony that takes place in the first week of February annually. There's also the International Day of Human Fraternity that the Alliance of Civilization honors each year. And this goes back to the papacy of Pope Francis, who was an advocate of interreligious dialogue and his efforts to build greater fraternity and cooperation between Christianity and Islam. There is also important endeavors that have been made by the Unification movement, particularly the Universal Peace Federation, organizations such as the Assembly of the World's Religions, and Reverend and Mrs. Boone spoke at the United Nations headquarters in the year 2000 and proposed the establishment of an interfaith council built within the UN system. So this is a very important course for anyone who's interested in building a world of peace, who wants to understand more about not only religion, but the relations between the religions, and for those especially interested in Christianity, the relations among the many branches, divisions, and denominations within Christianity, and how to promote dialogue. That would also include the relationship between Unificationism and Christianity. So I think it's an important course. I look forward to seeing some of you in the fall of 2026 for this course on ecumenism and interfaith. Thank you for your attention.
This is a basic course on the New Testament. We'll be going through almost the entire New Testament. I will be leading discussions and presenting lecture material, not only my own lectures, but also lectures by a Yale professor, Dale Martin, who has published on the internet an incredibly detailed series of lectures on the New Testament from a historical critical point of view. So this course is going to really challenge you to look at the characters in the New Testament in their historical background, to understand how these books of the New Testament were written, who were the authors, what was their social and political situation that led them to write the books the way they did, and what lessons they were trying to teach to their contemporaries. And then we will look at how these immortal words in the Bible have come to be understood by people of faith today. So in this course is a flipped class. That means that a lot of the work is to read the readings and view the lectures online, and then come to class prepared to discuss the content of the lectures. Don't expect me to do all the talking. I want to hear from you. I hope we can generate a really rich discussion each week as we go through the New Testament.
Greetings. My name is Dr. Michael Mickler. I am Distinguished Professor of Historical Studies at HJI, and it's my privilege to offer the History of Christianity fall semester. I'd like to briefly introduce the course. Starting with an overview, the history of Christianity traditionally covers four main areas. These are early Christianity, medieval Christianity, the Reformation, and modern Christianity. History of Christianity 1, which I will offer fall semester, covers early and medieval Christianity. So early Christianity is the focus for the first half of the course. These are some pictorials. I do use pictorials in my lectures, and I find they're quite helpful. Themes covered under early Christianity include the world of the first century, how God prepared the ground for the coming of the gospel. Technically, this is called Preparatio Evangelium. Church beginnings, in particular, how Christianity successfully transitioned from its apostolic or first generation to its post-apostolic or second generation. Early conflicts, how Christianity overcame external and internal threats, that is, Roman persecution and heretical movements. Consolidation, how Christianity established its core beliefs, scriptural canon, and organizational framework. Triumph, how Christianity finally overcame the Roman Empire. And ambiguity, how Christianity debated the benefits and costs of becoming a state religion. The focus for the second half of the course is medieval Christianity. And themes covered here include key institutions, how the papacy and monasticism became dominant players in the medieval church. Fragmentation, how Christological conflicts, that is, conflicts over Christ's nature, enabled and led to the rise of Islam. Christian kingship, how the medieval church invented the first Europe and the Holy Roman Empire. The High Middle Ages, how the church prevailed in conflicts with the state and reigned supreme in medieval society. Crusades, how the Crusades undermined the church. And the call for Reformation, how the era of medieval Christianity came to an end. In terms of format, the course is a flipped class. That means that readings and lectures will be completed outside of class, and there'll be one Zoom session a week for discussion of material. In terms of requirements, there are weekly reflections on a discussion board, on the course discussion board. There is a midterm and final, and there is a book report. Please consult the online syllabus, which is posted on the HGI website for more details. If you take the course, you will derive the following benefits. First, you will develop confidence in relating to Christian leaders, ministers, and scholars, as well as lay practitioners. In fact, you'll know far more about Christianity than the average practitioner. Second, you will learn lessons and understand challenges that Christianity faced, which are directly applicable today. And finally, and most importantly, you will gain an awareness of the living presence of Christ in history. This, more than anything else, accounts for Christianity's lasting legacy. I hope you will join me on this journey of faith. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our course on Unification theology. My name is Theodore Shimmyo, and probably some of you may not know me at all. So this is you can look at this video to see what kind of person I am. And I'm originally from Japan. I joined the Unification movement back in 1966 in Japan, and came over to America 1973, and I studied at the UTS when it was founded, after it was founded in 1975, and I pursued my doctoral studies, obtained my PhD in Christian theology 1984 from the Methodist institution, which is called Drew University, located in New Jersey, USA. And I served as president of UTS from 1994 until 2000. And I'm still teaching Christian theology and Unification theology and other courses at UTS as an adjunct faculty member. And I am so interested in theological studies, theological thinking. Every single day, every single moment, I theologize everything that I see, everything that I experience, and trying to reach God behind all these. I think part of the reason why I'm so interested in theology is because a couple of ancestors in my own lineage, at least a couple of them, used to be Catholic Christians in the beginning of the 17th century. They went through tremendous difficulty and persecution, and they got executed as Christian martyrs. And when I study Catholic theology as well as Protestant theology, I feel something so deep that may be the reason why I ended up teaching theology and Christian theology. Now, regarding our class, you will be able to understand that the divine principle has wonderful solutions to many theological issues and problems that have been left unsolved in the tradition of Christianity. When you find that out, you will be excited, and this course will definitely help you to enhance your ability to be able to have a dialogue with Christian clergy, Christian theologians, and Christian people, especially because now is a very important time in which Mrs. Moon really wants to really let Christianity as a second Israel accomplish its important mission to receive the return of Christ and true parents. So please enjoy the class. And this video is meant to show myself here. Anyway, welcome to our class. Thank you. Thank you very much.
The course on peace and conflict studies is meant to introduce you to HGI's peace studies program, as well as to the notion of peace studies in general. Peace has always been something that humankind has been longing for because there's always been war. But peace studies as an academic discipline has started really at the end of World War II because of all the destruction that took place during that war, the fact that now we had nuclear weapons, and the two main opponents in the Cold War, the Soviet Union and the United States, had a huge arsenal of nuclear weapons. All that made war just something that humankind could no longer afford if it wanted to survive. As a consequence, the United Nations were created, and in the UN Charter, it says that war is essentially illegitimate. War is outlawed. And the countries that signed the Charter of the United Nations committed themselves not to commit wars of aggression. If they did, they would expose themselves to sanctions by the Security Council. Now, how did that work? Well, as you can see, there have been a lot of wars since then, even though those who started them usually avoided, or almost always avoided, the world war to show that what they did was legitimate. So you have special military Operation Midnight Hammer, etc., etc. So that shows that there's an awareness that war should not exist, but anyway, it exists. As a result, peace studies became really necessary, and they have developed very fast since the 1950s, 1960s. And it has started with the study of the conditions in which war and violence in general takes place so that it could be addressed. And for instance, the question of what is peace seems obvious. Peace is when you don't fight, but there's more behind it. The notion of negative peace was created by Johann Galtung in distinction to positive peace. Negative peace means just right now nobody's fighting, but the reasons why they started fighting before, they're still there, and they will start most probably very soon to fight again. Positive peace means that besides no longer fighting just right now, an armistice, a brief interruption. Besides that, there's been a work on both sides to try to fix the things that led to war, the disagreements, the griefs, all the things that made war to happen. And there's been some degree of reconciliation. And there's really no need to fight anymore. Then you can hope that war will not start again. So that's positive peace. So that's the goal of peace studies. You have the same with violence. You will discover that in the course, very different types of violence. And then you have the notion of human security versus human rights. Why do we need both? Well, human rights are guaranteed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. These are fundamental rights that everybody has just by being human, such as the right to health care. But a right on paper is not everything. If your constitution guarantees you access to health care, but the next hospital is 500 miles away, you have that right, but you don't have access to health care anyway. So that's the notion of human security, access to rights, as opposed to just a theoretical right to rights. So that's a long discussion. Then another fundamental question is, what is conflict? Well, we know conflict is when we fight, but is there something underlying to actual visible conflicts that is difficult to eradicate? In other words, is conflict something that will always be present as long as you have human beings? Some worldviews consider conflict to be necessary for development. What hope can you have that there will be permanent peace if that's the case? Well, this will be discussed, and you will also discover why I have a picture of a window on this slide. Next, women and peace. Many of us have already thought that, well, if women were more involved, there would be more peace in this world. And actually, it's not just a stereotype that women are motherly, so they are good for peace. When women are involved in peacemaking, things go actually better. It has been statistically shown. But for that, they must be empowered to make decisions like the man at the table, not just be there in the preliminary discussions. But if women are part of the decision-making in a peace negotiation, it has been shown that peace not only is more likely to happen, but it is much more likely to last longer. So that is a very interesting discussion. I think that you will all be interested in it, and there's of course much more to it.
Hi, I'm Dr. Bruce Clarke, and I'm going to be teaching a course in the art of preaching this fall on Tuesdays. I hope you can join me. Homiletics, or the art of preaching, will cover a variety of forms of theological communication, including not just sermons, but also speaking at weddings and funerals, speaking to different audiences like youth and children and intergenerational formats, and in considering different styles and ways to be successful. If you look at the syllabus nearby, you'll see that there's 3 books that you need to acquire, and there'll be readings. But importantly, you'll have a chance to record yourself giving several sermons and messages, and then we'll use those to help evaluate ourselves. We'll look at a variety of other sermons by other famous and less famous preachers, and I hope you'll join me for this interesting class that will make us better pastors and better speakers. Thank you.
The book of Genesis is foundational for students of the divine principle. So many of its characters, from Adam to Jacob, are foundational, and the narratives about them are foundational for the understanding of how the principle operates in our lives. In this course, we're going to look at the book of Genesis chapter by chapter. Students are going to read through Genesis, select a commentary to increase their understanding of how Christian or Jewish commentators have understood these chapters, and be prepared to present their material each week. This is a seminar course. It's an advanced course. It's designed for people who have already taken the basic course on Hebrew Bible and who want to go more deeply into this one crucial book of the Bible. So each week we will be meeting together by Zoom, and it's going to be absolutely essential that you are at those discussions. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. But to prepare for those discussions, you will do some readings, both in the Bible and in the commentary literature, so that you can become an active participant with us in our journey through the book of Genesis. I will also be presenting some of my own spiritual material that gives new light and new insight into these characters and how they are doing now in this era when the providence of restoration that they were so involved with is coming to an end. So I hope you attend this class, and I will welcome your participation in it.
Welcome. My name is John, and this is an overview of the United Nations and Civil Society, a course at HJI running in the fall of 2026. Over the next few minutes, I will talk to you about why this course exists, what makes it distinctive, and how it's built, and of course, how you'll be assessed. We're studying the UN at a genuine turning point. It turned 80 last year and faces the deepest crisis of its lifetime: shrinking budgets, the return of great power rivalry, and a sweeping reform agenda, the Pact for the Future, adopted in 2024. For anyone heading into diplomacy, development, advocacy, or faith-based work, understanding this moment isn't optional. The numbers on the right tell the story. 80 years of a history, a projected quarter drop in UN system resources, and a reform pact that will shape the decade ahead. 3 commitments set this course apart. First, civil society is treated as the real shaper of world politics, not as a footnote. Second, faith is taken seriously. Faith-based organizations are studied as major actors in aid, peace building, and reform, analyzed by the same academic standards as anything else. And third, reform is something you'll actually argue. From the able UN to redesigning the Security Council, you'll weigh competing visions on their merits. The course runs 15 modules in 4 parts. First, understanding the UN itself, then civil society, faith, a hands-on practicum, then the wider system and the politics of reform. And finally, new challenges and conclusions. Let's take them one at a time. Starting with the foundations. We start with the UN in 2026, then go back to its founding, the Charter, and its principal organs, looking back to where we were and where we are now. We talk about who holds the real power inside. Eleanor Roosevelt, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the Sustainable Development Goals. Part 1 closes with a midterm quiz on the foundations of the UN. Now, the part that most courses skip, when the big decisions get made in New York and Geneva, who actually speaks up for the ordinary people? Can a charity, a faith community, or a youth movement really shift global policy? And when do religious actors cool a conflict down rather than heat it up? We soon get to practice some of this through a multilateral role-playing exercise where you negotiate a real-world crisis by taking a seat at the table, either as a government, a UN body, or as an advocacy group. And you find out whether you can negotiate your way through it. This will be asynchronous, so entirely virtual over several weeks, debating and presenting your positions, looking at how the discussion evolves. And then we go into the uncomfortable question: is the UN still where global power actually lives? Or is it shifting to other institutions? Can an 80-year-old organization really reinvent itself before it gets sidelined? You'll dig into reform efforts underway right now, and then make your case in a policy memo, arguing how you would fix the UN. Finally, the problems nobody has solved yet. Who should govern artificial intelligence? What happens when climate change moves faster than diplomacy can actually keep up? And what will the world need from the next leaders? We pull the whole course together here at this point, reflecting on the future of global cooperation and ethical leadership. And your final research papers where you stake out your own answer. 5 required assessments make up your grade: weekly discussion, the midterm, the crisis simulation, the policy memo, and the final research paper. Together, they cover participation, foundational knowledge, applied skills, and original analysis. So you're assessed on what you know and what you can do to bringing it all back to your work. You'll leave with 4 transferable skills: policy writing, negotiation, critical analysis, and genuine fluency across the UN, civil society, and faith-based diplomacy. Because it's not just New York or Geneva where this institution is based in. It's all over the globe, many different countries. And this is all crucial in working global affairs, regional affairs, and across many other fields beyond international relations or peace studies. And that's the United Nations and civil society. If you want to understand and help shape how the world is governed, join us in the fall of 2026. Feel free to contact me with any questions. Happy to answer and engage with you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Frederick Swarts. I'll be teaching the 3-credit Research Methods course, PST 5151. I taught graduate research method courses for over a decade with the University of Bridgeport School of Public International Public Affairs. These are delivered mainly in person, but also some years were offered online as asynchronous courses, such as this one. Research methods is always a foundational course in graduate studies. This current course will provide an important overview of both qualitative and quantitative research methods. There's one difference from some of the in-person courses I taught. Unlike the in-person course, I was able to give students experience in statistical calculations such as chi-square and t-test correlation coefficients. I found it difficult and limiting in terms of doing it online, but we will do an overview sufficient to understand what statistics are available for particular studies, how to interpret the findings in published research. We'll go over numerous research designs, such as survey methodology, content analysis, historical research, participant and non-participant observation, experimental studies, correlation studies, and so forth. We also spend time on important aspects related to writing, such as citations, differences between punctuation in British versus American writing, U.S. copyright law, and so forth. We'll address how graduate students can protect their research and their works in general from being unethically appropriated by others, including their professors, and what belongs to them versus their institutions. We also spend a lot of time on research ethics, including research involving human subjects, such as involved in surveys and interviews, which are important in social science and peace research. I served for 12 years on the main institutional review board for the United States Department of Energy. This board was the main board responsible for approving DOE research that involved human subjects. We look at what legal and ethical issues of research in general, development of what constitutes official research misconduct, review historical case studies and documents related to human subject research, and so forth. I believe you'll find the class enjoyable. I'm confident you'll find it very much worth your investment of time and money. I look forward to seeing you.
Many people approach life through religious faith, spiritual conviction, personal values, or deeply held commitments. Yet the questions remain. What gives my life meaning? Why do some experiences feel meaningful while others leave us empty? How should I respond to suffering, responsibility, uncertainty, or change? These questions are not limited to philosophy classrooms. They emerge in ordinary life, work, relationships, success, loss, and personal decisions. This course begins with experiences familiar to all of us. We examine the difference between happiness and meaning. We explore how people interpret their experiences. We ask how suffering, responsibility, relationships, creativity, and hope shape a meaningful life. Rather than beginning with abstract theories, we begin with questions that arise from life itself. Along the way, we encounter several influential thinkers who approached these questions from different perspectives. Viktor Frankl argues that human beings are fundamentally oriented toward meaning. Joseph Campbell explores how stories and myth shape human life. Carl Jung examines symbols, dreams, and self-understanding. Martin Heidegger asks how mortality shapes our understanding of life. Hans-Georg Gadamer explores how meaning emerges through interpretation. Hannah Arendt examines the human capacity to begin something new through action. No previous background in philosophy is required. The course is designed to guide students gradually through these ideas and help them connect them to their own experiences. Students do more than learn philosophical theories. Throughout the semester, students examine their own experiences through the ideas they study. Weekly discussions and reflections invite the student to connect the course concept with the concrete situations in their own lives. The goal is not simply to learn what the philosophers thought, but to develop a thoughtful and responsible perspective on the question of meaning. Philosophy may not provide one final answer to the meaning of life, but it can deepen how we understand ourselves, our choices, our relationships, and the lives we are trying to live. I invite you to join us in this exploration of one of humanity's oldest and most important questions.
Hello, everyone. My name is Franco Famularo, and I'd like to briefly introduce an important course that's offered in the Doctor of Ministry program at HJI. It's called Faith Leadership in Today's World. We're living in a time of rapid social change, no need to say that, cultural diversity, technological transformation, and uncertainty on many levels, spiritually, politically, economically, and more. And traditional models of leadership are no longer enough. Religious leaders today are called not only to preach, but also to guide transformation within individuals, families, communities, and organizations. And as someone who's had many years of experience in the zone, people come to you with every kind of issue. So this course challenges students to explore what kind of leadership is needed in our postmodern world, and examines how ministers and faith leaders and leaders in different sectors of society can become facilitators for healthy spiritual growth that can build unity and harmony and be agents of positive social change. One important focus of the course is empowering people. Leadership, as you know, is not simply about authority from the top. It's about developing others, building consensus, and creating environments where people can participate meaningfully in decision-making and problem-solving. And as students, we study how organizations functions, how to build teams, how they interact, and how leaders can inspire cooperation in multidimensional settings. This course also examines practical leadership skills such as strategic planning, organizational communication, conflict resolution, and performance management. Students will learn how to establish vision, mission, goals, and objectives while responding effectively to change, diversity, and technology in ministry and society. A valuable aspect of the course is self-reflection. So through books as John Maxwell's The 360-Degree Leader and Overcoming the Dark Side of Leadership by McIntosh and Rima, students are encouraged to examine both the strengths and weaknesses of leadership. Effective leadership requires not only competence, but also emotional maturity, humility, and spiritual integrity. And this program reflects the broader mission of HJI, which seeks to cultivate heart, mind, and spirit in an interfaith context while promoting peace, service, and global engagement. This is right there in our mission statement, the vision of one global family under God that many of us subscribe to reminds us that leadership today must transcend cultural, religious, and social barriers. So in many ways, this course prepares you, the leader, not only for churches or religious organizations, but also for civic and global arenas, whether leading a congregation, a nonprofit organization, a community initiative, an interfaith movement. Leaders today must be adaptable, compassionate, and visionary. And finally, I'd like to say something about leadership that's rooted in a faith in God, because in today's world, it's about guiding people through uncertainty with wisdom and building communities rooted in hope and helping others discover purpose and transformation. I look forward to seeing you in this course. Thank you very much, and God bless you.